All right, so we're going to begin this recording, and this is section 4.1, the alpha lesson, which is unit 3 in the College Board learning objectives, okay? First thing is the idea of a sample survey. Well, how to sample badly. So this is a definition that you're accountable for. So we told you so far you're accountable for the definition of R squared. And that is a part of what you're being assessed on Thursday. And R squared is the proportion of change in the output that can be attributed to the change in the input. This bias, you are accountable for that, meaning literally to memorize it. And bias is when the sample statistic does not match the population parameter. Now, this is very literate, right? You've got sample statistic. The S's go together, population and parameter go together. Well, what does this mean? We're trying to, I don't know if alliterate's a word, it's alliteration. We're trying to find out something about the parameter without conducting a census and asking everyone. So what's in the news right now, and what you're getting bombarded with, is that we are 4 weeks away from an election. So there's a lot of polling going on. And what the polling is doing is they're sampling in order to generalize that to the population. So you see, this candidate's winning by this proportion in this state, and overall in this, by this proportion. They're publishing sample statistics that they expect that map onto the population parameter. And then it's useful. I mean, the individual campaigns do their own polling, because they have to know when to shift resources. Well, it looks like we're not doing well here. We got to spend more money there. You want to have some science to this, okay? So bias is when that doesn't work out, because the statistic doesn't map onto the parameter. Now, the problem is you might not know it was biased until it's too late. But we're trying to reduce bias when we're sampling. So a couple of examples that are biased would be convenience sampling, which we're going to give you an example of, and voluntary response bias. So the convenience sampling we're going to deal with in problem 5. We're going to go over a couple questions. Voluntary response would be, an example of that would be, we don't have this show anymore, but they used to have a TV show on Comcast. It's called Daily News Live, and they had a poll every day. So if Daily News Live are still in the air, the poll would be something to the effect that, should Wentz remain the starting quarterback for the Eagles, or should they give Hurts a chance? Or last week it would have been keep Clintack or fire Clintack, okay? And what's happening is they would ask people to respond to this. It's voluntary response. It's not a scientific way to collect data. They're just trying to promote their brand. The only people that are going to respond to this are the people that are really moved by this issue. They don't represent the typical Eagles fan or Phillies fan or resident of Philadelphia. Okay? And then random sampling is what we're trying to get. And this abbreviation, SRS, is 100% legitimate on the AP test. You can use SRS. The College Board readers will know what you mean. Okay? So we're just going to go to page 236 and give you a minute to read problem number 5. please. All right, so what's the issue? Well, the counselor may have meant well, but surveying the first 100 students that arrive at school is just convenient for the counselor. And that's not likely to give a sample that represents, it's likely to be biased. It's unlikely that that sample statistic is going to map onto the population parameter. So they quantify this and say, between 7 and 8 hours of sleep, the students that get less sleep than that aren't going to be among the first 100 to show up at school. So if you really wanted to know how much sleep the students are getting, you would have to have a random sample. And that's what chapter 4 is about. Okay? Now, the next problem is more quantitative and it's more important. This will be on the test, this random sampling. So we need you to go here first. You're going to go to the Google Slides. Now, this date is not in the book, but it's helpful to see the slide. And you can come back to this tomorrow. Well, no, tomorrow I'm going to focus on what's on the test on Thursday. Fine. You get back to it later, but you're going to go specifically to slides 23 through 40 about how to use the random digits. Okay? All right, so we're moving on to problem 11. And 11 says this: you want to pick 5 students randomly from 40. How could we do this? Okay, so the textbook takes us through using a specific row in the back of the book, and we're going to complement that by going to the calculator. So find your calculator. And before we go through the solution in the book using the table, we'll show you how to do it on the calculator. So there's 40 students to choose from. So we're going to literally assign them a number of 1 to 40. I go to Math, ERB. Now, this is a newer calculator. You've got this. 5 is a random integer generator, and 8 will be without replacement. Well, before we do that, let's do this. Everybody go here. Let's put in the number for the Flyers' best player. So everybody has to type in 14, because Couturier is by far their best player. Math, 1. 14, Stuart Rand. Whoa, just once. Okay? Now go to, we're going to pick somebody at random from the data set for problem 11. Math, probability, 5, start at 1, end at 40. We're just going to pick one person. We good? We would get number 18, except what? Well, if I go to 18, I see that's Helen. We good? Because there's 10 in each column. So the last kid in column 2 is Johnson, so that's 20, so we get it back up 2. What's the issue? The issue is everyone got Helen. Why? Because it's not really a random generator. It's based on this seed value, whatever we put in RND. So if we all put the same value in, then the algorithm's spitting out the same outcome. So in order for this to be truly random, right, not truly random, but as random as we could get it, you're going to go here. Put in the last 2 digits of your cell phone. Those 2 digits, store Math. I'm putting in my actual last 2 digits. Don't call there. Store 1. And now we should get different outcomes, okay? So I'm going to go back here and we're going to pick, instead of picking all 5, we'll just pick 2 or 3. Ready? If I go to math, BRB, everybody's got 5. Not everyone has 8. 1 to 40. I pick 3 students. I got 3 distinct students, 28, 25, and 10. They were picked randomly. Now they tell us to pick 5. Okay, well, fine, we can do 5. But the issue is, if you use this, you may get a repeat because this thing, math, BRB, 5 is with replacement. It puts the number back in. 8 is without replacement. So if you have 8, it kind of makes your job easier because if you have 5 and you wanted 3 kids, you might have to pick 4 or more in order to make sure you don't get repeats. But if you don't have 8, don't worry about it. Start at 1, pick up to 40, pick 3, and those would be the 3 kids you would pick, okay? That is how you do it on the calculator. Now this lesson is going to be posted to YouTube tomorrow because I get that this is confusing. Well, I don't get that it's confusing so much as I've learned that a lot of students get confused by this. So you need to see it multiple times, but you're going to have this problem on the YouTube page, and you're going to have the slides to come back to kind of deal with any misunderstandings you have. So if we go back to the textbook specifically said, go here. Go to the table, row 107. Now, if you're doing this, you should pick the row randomly, right? But they're doing this so everybody would get the same answer. It's kind of like when we had the same seed value. So in the table, this is important now, you got to look at that. In the table, you go to row 107. And there are columns of 5 numbers. The only reason they're in groups of 5 is to make it easier for you to read them. Okay? So you need to see this. On that page, in row 107, the first pair of numbers is 82. Well, I have to take 2 numbers because there's 40 kids. If there were 105 kids to choose from, I have to have sets of 3 numbers. If there were 8 kids, I could do with a set of 1 number. But I'm going to use 1 to 40, and if I use the table, I'm going to ignore any outputs above 40. And I'm referring to 00 as 100. See, some people start at 00. That's unnecessarily confusing because if you start at 00, you got to stop at 39 because 00 would count and you wouldn't have a 1-to-1 correspondence. So back here, what happened? 82 is the first pair of numbers. Too high. 73, second pair of numbers. Too high. Then you have to jump columns. The 9 is the last number in the first group, and the 5 is the first number in the second group. They're all too high till I get to 20. So I go to the table, and the 20th kid would be at the bottom of the second column. That would be Johnson. Then up here I wrote the headings. Ready? The first kid in column 1 would be Anderson. The first kid in column 2 would be Drayson. First kid in column 3 would be Kim. And the first person in column 4 would be Ryder. So pick up from the 20. Too high, too high, too high. There's Drayson. So the asterisks are the numbers that work. And what? if you were to get a 20 again, you would skip it, right? Because we're doing this without replacement. Once this child's picked, they're out. So I go through here and I stop after I get a sample size that we want. And we want a sample size of 5, and that last, as far as we need to go, was to go to 0.7. All right? So one thing they point out in the book, which I guess I didn't really think of, which is you got to think of the first group of children, of students, as being 0, 1 through 0, 9. Because we're taking these digits in pairs because the set had a size of 40. So you come across a 1, you don't stop at 1. It's got to be 0, 1 to be that first kid. Okay? So, you know, this is, if you are focused on this, it's not difficult, but it's easy to get confused. And you have to be aware of your resources, and you have to be aware of what you're accountable for. So what you are accountable for is a problem in May where they gave you the table. They said, use this table. So they're taking the calculator away from you for that situation to make sure you can do both. That you can use the calculator, the technology, and use the table of random digits. And it's a table of random digits, meaning on the College Board formula sheet, which is in the resources folder on Canvas, part of that has a table of random digits. Okay? So that is the alpha lesson for 4-1.